Welcome back. In this video, we want to talk about loops. Up until now, all the codes and the programs that we have been writing are executed once. But what about we want to let our code be executed repeatedly, or we want to iterate over some items in a data set? How can we do that? We can use loops to do these things. In Python, we have two types of loops. We have the for loop and then the while loop. Alright, so first we will look at the for loop and then later we look at the while loop. So in order to use the for loop, we can use the for keyword. Then we declare any variable that we want, so far as it conforms to the rules of naming a variable in Python. Alright, so here we can use, let's say, I. And then we use the in keyword that we saw in some previous videos, and then here we can declare any data type that we want, but the data type has to be iterable. All right, we will just look at what iterable means very soon. And then here we bring our column as we saw in the if statement, and then we can print our I. So what this means is that this little program here is going to go through the list one by one and then print the elements one by one. So first the program will go through this list and print 1, and then go through again, print 2, and then go through again, print 3. So that is how the for loop works. So if we run this code, we are getting 1, 2, 3. All right, it's not only list that we can loop or iterate over its items, we can also iterate over tuples. So if we change this list to a tuple and then we run this code, we are seeing that it also ran. We didn't get any error. We can also change here to a set. All right, and then if we run this code again, it also ran. But what about if we change this code to, let's say, a number 100? Let's run this and see. We are getting an error, type error, int object is not iterable. So what we mean by iterable is that iterables means we can iterate over its items, all right, or characters. So the sequence data types or the collection data types are what are called the iterables. The number data type is not iterable. Okay, so let's look at how we can iterate over this dictionary over here. So we can say for I in my that, and then we can change this variable here to anything. So we can say item, and then we have to change this one to item. And then if we print or run this code, we are getting the keys in the dictionary. All right, and if you remember when we were learning dictionary method, we had something called dot items. All right, so if you use the dot items right here and then we run this code, we are getting the name or the key value pair as a tuple. Okay, so we can also use the key, if you remember the keys method that we saw in dictionary methods, to access the keys in the dictionary. It works the same as using for item in my date. Okay, and then if you want to access only the values, we can say values dot values, and then if we run this, we are getting only the values. But what about if you want to access both the keys and then the values? We can use something called key and then comma value. Remember that this is, or these are just variables, so you can just let it be anything, but just let it be descriptive. All right, and then here we have to change here to items, so we can print the key and then the value. So if we run this code, we are accessing the names and the keys. What this means is that for each line we enter this dictionary and then we access the name, or we access the key and then we access the value, and then we go to the next, we print that, we go to the next one, we access the next key, and then we access its value till all the elements are finished. So the loop or the for loop iterate over the items of a certain data set until there are nothing to print again or to iterate again. So that is how the for loop works. Okay, so let's use this for loop again to, let's say, wish our friends a Merry Christmas. So if you have a, let's say, a very large data set, a list of your friends, and then you want to wish all of them a Merry Christmas during Christmas, how can you do this? We just have 3 friends here, and then we want to imagine that we are in the Christmas season, and then we want to wish the Merry Christmas. So we can do here for friend. Remember, this is just a variable. Then here we can say for friend in friends, but here you have to be something that you have defined already. Here is just a new variable that you are declaring. All right, so it can be anything so far as it conforms to the rules of naming a variable in Python. But here has to be something that you have declared, or you have declared already, or you are now declaring it. Okay. Then here, what should we do? We want to wish our friends Merry Christmas. So we can print Merry Christmas. Then for each friend, we print our friend here. So this, we access the first friend, we print Merry Christmas, then the name will come here. We enter the list again, we access the second element, then we print Merry Christmas. So if we run this code, we are getting Merry Christmas Sam, Merry Christmas Dan, and then Merry Christmas Ben. Okay, let's try to iterate over the items in the teams list. For that, we want to pair them as a football match. So we want to print, let's say, Man U versus Juve, Barca versus Chelsea, this and that, all right? But not each team versus itself. We can't print Juve versus Juve or Barca versus Juve or Barca versus Barca. So how can we do that? We can say, let's say, for home team in teams. And what we are going to use is called nested loop, all right? As we saw in the if statement. So we are going to use nested loop to do this exercise. So here, we can also declare another for loop. We can declare it as many as we want so far as it makes sense, all right? Then here, we can say away team in teams. And then don't forget the column, the indentation, all right? You know that for Python, for a certain code block to work, it has to be indented. If you want it to belong to a certain code block, then it has to be indented. Then here we said we don't want our, or we don't want a team to pair itself. So we have to say if home team is not equal to away team, then don't forget the column. We should print home team versus away team. All right, simple as that. So if we run this code, let's run it and see what we get. We are getting what? Man U versus Juve, Man U versus Barca, Man U versus Chelsea, Juve versus Man U. So it's just printing the home and away matches. So they will play the matches twice. All right. So this is how we can write a program that pairs team for a football match, home and away. Okay, so if you remember the range keyword, we use the range keyword in the previous videos. That one too is iterable, the range data type or the range function. Okay, so we can use it here too. Remember, we were able to convert 8 items to a list before we actually saw what was in the data set. So if we do this, this will just print range 0 to 10. Okay, if you want to see the items, we can use list, convert it to list here, and then if we run this, you will get 0 to 9. What you have to know is that the last item is not inclusive since we are starting from 0. So if we want to start from 1, we can declare it like this, and then if we run this, we start from 1. And if you want to include 10, then it has to be plus 1 here. All right, so always the last item is not part, it's just minus 1. So we just want to loop through the range item. So we can say for, let's say num in range, let's say 10. We should print the numbers. Let's run this code and see. We are getting 0, 1 up to 9. So all that we are trying to say is that the range function or the range data type is also iterable. Okay. Now there is something interesting about this range function. As we said, we can start from 0 here, and then if we bring comma, this will start from 0, all right, to 9. We can start from 2 here, and then if we run this, we are getting 2 up to 9. All right. This also works as slicing. So if we bring another comma here and then we add another item here, this will serve as the step over. Okay. So if we put 2 here, then it's going to step over 2. The default step over is 1. Okay. So if we run this, we are getting 1. The first item will be printed. Then it jumps over 2 times to what? 3, 5, up to 9. So that is how it works. You have to make sure that if you bring only one item here, then it's going to start from 0 and then end at the number you place here minus 1. Okay. But you have to make sure always the number that you are starting with, if you are putting 2 numbers here, is greater than the one that you are ending with. So if we run this code, let's see, nothing will be executed because we are starting from 5 to 0. It doesn't work that way unless we want the step over to be minus 1. All right. So we start from 5, then we decrease up to 0. But the 0 is exclusive. So we start from 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Then we also have something called enumerate. If you want to access the index of an item, okay, a pair of the index of the item and then the item itself, we can use something called enumerate. It just number the item that you put there. Whatever that you put here should be iterable. Okay. So if we hover over this, we are getting that self and then iterable. So anything that you put here should be iterable. It should be something that you can loop through. All right. So let's put Python here. And then here we want to access the index and then the item itself. Okay. These are just variables. It can be anything. So we want to print the index and then the item or letter or whatever that you want to name your variable. So if we run this, we are just going to get each character in this Python word and then its index. All right. So if we run this, let's see. We are getting the index of P is 0, the index of Y is 1 up to the index of N, which is 5. So that is how the enumerate function works. These are some very important concepts that we are going to use in our programming journey. So we have to make sure we understand them. And then last but not the least, we have something called the else statement that is attached to the for loop. Okay, so we can say for I in, let's say, range 5. And then here we want to print I. Then after that, we bring else, print I. What we should know is that this I that we have placed here is just the last value of the items in this range data set. All right. So if we run this, we are getting 0 up to 4 and then 4 again. Why is the 4 repeating? The 4 is repeating because after this loop ends, the I variable, we said this is a variable, right? So the value that is stored in this I variable is the last item that was printed after the loop ended. So 4 was stored in this I variable after the loop was ended. So that is why I is being printed. So after this loop, if we print I anywhere in the code, we are going to get 4 because 4 is the last item here. So if we increase this one to, let's say, 7, it means the last item will be what? 6. All right. But the else statement will only be printed if there is no break statement in the for loop. So as soon as we bring break here, then the else statement will not be printed. Okay. So here it just works up to, or even nothing was printed, just started from 0 and then it's terminated. We have to fix this. Okay. Let's use a proper example to fix this code. So we can say, let's say for letter in, then let's say here we want to iterate over some email. So let's say johndoe@gmail.com. So these break keyword, they are very necessary. They just terminate the loop. All right. It just, whenever that you bring it, it just makes sure that the loop terminates. It ends there. And then here we want to just print John Doe, all right, without the @gmail.com. So as soon as the code reaches the @ we want our code to break. So we can say if letter equals the @ keyword, then we don't forget to bring your colon here. We should break the code. So remember, this break belongs to the if keyword. All right, then after we want to print our letter, but remember we want John Doe. If we leave the code like this, the letters will be printed on each line. We want to override that, the next line character, and then leave them with no space. So if you remember this end keyword, we can just put an empty string here. Okay, and then let's bring letter here. If we run this code, we are getting John Doe. Because of this break statement, that is why this letter in the else statement is not being printed. If you remember, when you didn't bring this break keyword, the else statement was executed. But as soon as you bring the break keyword, the else statement will not be executed. We also have another keyword called continuum. Okay, these are very necessary concepts in loops. So let's say we have a range of items and then up to, let's say, 10, and then we want to print only the odd numbers. Okay, so here we want to say if num modulo 2 is equal to 0. We want to continue. What the continue does is jump over that item that satisfies this condition. Okay, so whenever that we reach an item or a number that is evenly divisible by 2, it will jump over it. So that is what the continuum keyword does. The break statement or the break keyword is used to execute or stop the for loop, but the continuum statement or keyword is used to continue the code, just eat the condition that you want it to satisfy. This is the if statement that we have given to the continuum keyword. So as soon as this condition evaluates to true, the continuum keyword will eat that word. We call it word eater or item eater. Okay, it's just jump over it. So here we can print num, and then let's print num here, or we can just do away with the else keyword. So if we run this, we are getting 13579 because we use the else keyword here. Because there is no break here, that is why the else statement is being printed. Okay, so we are just using this code to print the odd numbers between 0 and then 10. So that is the continuum keyword for you. And lastly, we have one called pass. The pass keyword does nothing. Okay, the pass statement does nothing. If you want to write a loop and then you don't want to, let's say, put anything there, if you leave it like this and you run it, you will get an error. Okay, indentation error expected an indent block after for statement in line 10, but we are not getting anything. So you can just put the pass here, and then if we run this, we will get no error in our code. So the pass statement or the pass keyword actually does nothing. These are some pretty concepts that we have learned here. In the next video, we will do some exercises using the for loop, and then later we look at the while loop. Okay, gradually we are moving forward. Bye bye for now. See you in the next video.